Hey guys, so you should have watched the video before this. This is the warm-up demo. So this is a warm-up to show you how to approach your project. So I do this with my classes even when we are in school. It's really helpful. It's a good framework to follow, and it breaks it down and makes it super simple for your project. You're gonna need a straight edge, an eraser, and a pencil for this, and a piece of paper. And we will kind of quickly move through this warm-up. It's not going to take a long time, and we're not going to refine this drawing, just getting the concepts down enough that you understand it and you feel confident going forward in your project. So if at any time you want to pause and work on it or rewind so that you understand what I'm saying, you can. Okay, so we're going to start off with a square in the middle of our page. Can be a square, a rectangle, and this is the end of the hallway. This doesn't need to be exact. I'm just gonna do maybe 1.5 inches. So in our hallways, this will be like a door frame, a window, a brick wall, just whatever the structure is at the end of the hallway. You'll kind of see how this comes to life as we draw. Okay, so we have our end of the hallway square. So we're gonna go ahead and put our vanishing point in the middle. So it'll never be off to the side or inside your square, it needs to be in the middle. So we're gonna take our ruler, let's start off with this top left corner. We're gonna line up the corner of the square that we just drew to the vanishing point. And we're gonna draw a line touching the corner of the square and extends to the end of the paper, just like that. Okay, now we'll take our ruler, line up with the vanishing point in the top right corner of our square that we just drew, and we're gonna draw a line, just like that. So notice that it didn't touch the corners of our paper. People get that confused. They think like it should touch the corner, and that doesn't match up with our vanishing point in the corner of the square. So just make sure you're always touching the corner of the square and your vanishing point. I'm going to do that with every single corner now. Now there are some instances that maybe it will hit that edge of your paper corner, but most likely won't. So take the vanishing point, bottom right of the square, and draw. Vanishing point, bottom left square corner, and you're gonna draw like that. Okay, so I usually do this with a whiteboard, but I'm gonna draw this, and you don't need to because you'll end up erasing it, but this is gonna be the ceiling. This is gonna be a wall. This is gonna be the floor, and this is going to be the other wall. So I've labeled it, and you can see where this makes the project really simple because it breaks it down into those 4 sections. And that way you can just focus on one section at a time. You saw that in my example in the last video that I did that. I was still working on my wall and my floor. So let's start off with the floor. Okay, so I'm gonna erase my label that I just did. Probably shaking the camera a little bit, but what can you do? So this is where, when we did the railroad track, we learned some rules that will apply here. So the floors in the school, they either have carpet or the linoleum tile, but they all have a tile outlay because the carpet is in little tile squares. So we're gonna do tile lines. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put just little lines along the bottom of our square. So I just did 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I said, this is a quick warm-up. This doesn't need to be perfect, but these are where the rows of tiles will go. So I'm gonna take that first line that I just created and connect it to the vanishing point. And I'm going to draw a line that extends all the way to the edge of the paper. Then I'm going to go to the next marking that I just made. I'm going to draw a line that extends. The next marking, lining up with my vanishing point. Draw it to the edge of the paper. The next line, line up. Okay, so it almost looks like a bowling alley right now. So this is the floor tile lines, but now we need to draw the horizontal lines. So this follows the rules of perspective in the fact that when it's closer to the vanishing point, our tile lines are going to be really small. Okay, so keeping to those rules, I'm drawing horizontal lines that are pretty close to each other, and they're going to gradually span out and get wider and wider. Okay, and now you can see our tile floor lines. Okay, so we're moving on very quickly. Like I said, I don't want to spend time on this, too much time, because it kind of burns out my students when we do that. And this is just supposed to get you set up for your project. Okay, so I'm going to erase this wall because we're going to do some lockers over here. So we're going to set up the lockers and then we'll just do a few. So the lockers obviously don't touch the ceiling. So we're going to draw a line that will be the top of our lockers, and it's going to be lower than this line. So you see this line here, we're going to drop our ruler down. And this usually in the school hallways is either like a cork board where teachers hang up like signs for their clubs, or some bricks. So now we have where the top of our lockers are going to be drawn. So it's kind of like the guideline for the tops of our trees. Now we need to draw where the bottom of our lockers will touch. In our school, along the locker lines, there are these little tiles. So we're going to do like a little row of tiles. So I lined it up with my vanishing point. I concluded down here how wide I want that tile line to be, and I adjusted my ruler, making sure it's still touching the vanishing point, and I draw my line. So it looks like this. Okay, we're just gonna do a few lockers. So just like the tile lines, these are gonna be really narrow at the end. If you notice in the examples, they are so narrow that they are just lines right next to each other. Some are like hardly visible. And then they're gonna span out wider and wider. It's kind of hard to see with my ruler here. Okay, so they're gonna get further and further apart. And it should probably be a little more subtle than this, but this is just a quick warm up. So notice that this is a lot like the railroad track, but flipped on its side. So that's, again, another reason that we learned that. You want to make sure your ruler is very straight up and down. I noticed that my ruler is kind of sloping. When you do this in your project, make sure you have lines that are straight up and down. Okay, so now if you think about the lockers, I'm actually going to do one right here that's a little wider so you can get the idea. Whoops, drew a little too far. Okay, so we have our lockers going in a row. So notice in the lockers, they have like little vent holes. We're gonna draw those vent hole lines, and they lead back to the vanishing point. So the first row, second row, and I'm just moving my ruler down as I'm doing each line. Okay, now I'm gonna do the bottom vent lines. So let's do a combination slot. So it's a lot like the door on the house that we drew for the railroad scene. So we need to draw the top of the door. So take our ruler, line it up with the vanishing point, and draw a horizontal line. Slide it down, horizontal line. And connect those with two vertical lines. And now we have the locker combination. Okay, so you can see I would do the same thing on each locker door, keeping it consistent and lined up. I'll quickly show you. You are not required to draw this, but if I were to draw the vent holes, I'd line it up with the ones that I did before, the vanishing point, and draw those. Again, you don't need to do this. I'm just showing you demo-wise. Lining up with, for the locker combination, with the top and bottom of the other one. So this is a pretty, like I said, very quick demo. So this is not perfected by any means. I'm gonna redo that one. That wasn't very well done. Lining up with the vent holes before and the vanishing point. 1, slide down 2, slide down 3. Okay, so you could see that I would continue that into space. Okay, now I'm gonna do the ceiling. So most of the ceilings in our school, pretty much the same. We just have the ceiling tiles that have the lights, the fluorescent lights. So this is gonna go a lot like a railroad track again, but flipped upside down, okay? So I'm gonna take my ruler, line it up with my vanishing point, and I'm gonna decide how wide I want my ceiling lights to go. I'm actually I'm gonna draw on the top line of my square how wide I want my lights to be, so about that wide. So then I'll take my ruler and line up with the vanishing point and that first point that I drew on the square line. And I'm gonna draw a line extending outward. Line up with my vanishing point. And the line that I drew before, I'm gonna draw that line there. So same deal as before, like the lockers and the floor. Down here, my lights are gonna be really narrow, okay? And this is a lot like the railroad track because we're gonna draw our light and then we'll erase the line in between. So these are gonna be closer together and then they're gonna span out and get wider. So then in between each light, I would erase the line. And then in between that one. This one's gonna be wide because it's getting really close. Again, this one does not need to be perfect. Okay, and you can see that we now have our ceiling. So you can see where these sections are coming to life, and it really makes it easy to draw based on this framework. And these lines are where the wall and ceiling meet, floor and ceiling meet. So over here, we're gonna do just a little section of bricks. So this is gonna be a brick wall because we have so many bricks in this school. So you'll see some bricks in your picture. Now I'm not expecting that you're gonna go through and count every single brick and draw all that detail, but I will expect that you're trying your hardest to make it look like the picture, but not down to the number of bricks. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna line up our ruler and we're gonna decide how wide we want our bricks to be based on this line here. So I'm gonna draw my first line because I decided how wide. And basically our ruler is just gonna keep moving down. We're gonna move it down like this, still connecting back to our vanishing point, and we're gonna be drawing our lines. So, and these will create each brick line. So we're gonna do thicker bricks just for the sake of example, but yours will be a lot more narrow when you do the project. Still connecting to that vanishing point, you can see where my bricks all lead to that vanishing point. So this is a mistake that I often see where people don't do that. Okay, so now you can see where all the brick lines and rows will go. So bricks are like very angular and they're laid correctly, okay? So what I mean by that is I don't want you to go in and freehand your brick lines. That's a mistake that I often see. Don't do that. So I'm gonna put a big X right here. You can't tell that's an X, okay? Don't do that. And you don't need to do this in your warm-up. I just did that for the sake of warm-up. So don't freehand your brick lines. You need to use a ruler. So think about how, I'm gonna flip over my paper. This is for example. Think about how bricks lay. So here's one brick, 2, and we'll do 3. So we have 3 bricks in a row. Usually this line right here touches in the middle of this brick. Okay, so that's the brick lay pattern you would follow. Okay, so the line would land in the middle of the brick below. Okay, so we're just gonna do a couple of bricks over here so you get the practice. So I'm gonna draw some brick lines. I like to do 1 row, and then I'll go to the row below it, and in the middle is where I'll start that brick. The other thing is making sure your ruler is very straight up and down. We don't want flopped lines, because then, same with if you do freehand, your walls will start to look like they're warping. They're caving in. They're not a straight angular wall. Like, look at how nice and straight those are. And they look like a brick line, okay? When I do the project, I go in and I kind of add thickness though to my lines, because if you look at a brick wall, they have like the cement that's keeping them laid together, and they're not just this thin angular line. But I'm gonna do a couple more brick lines, and then, like I said, this is very quick warm up, so we're not gonna spend a lot of time on this demo. Okay, so there's your brick wall. That's as far as we'll go on this demo. I hope that this made it so that you don't feel as overwhelmed. A lot of students get overwhelmed when I say, okay, go out in the hallway and draw. You guys have it a lot more simple because you do have a picture. Now, I want to emphasize, I don't want to see this type of work in your project. This was a quick warm up. I've said that a billion times during this video, but I mean that. This is a quick just showing you the framework of how to draw and set up your hallway, but I want to see detail. I want to see you not only using 1 point perspective, but refining it and making it look nice. This is a project, okay? We will spend several online class period days working on this. So this generally takes 2 to 3 regular class days. So how it's gonna work is I'm gonna have checkpoints that when you're working on this at home, you're gonna show me your progress. That way you're not leaving this until the last minute, because I know some of you will do that. And I'm getting handed in projects that I'm gonna have to, take a lot of points off for. So please make sure you're taking your time, and basically I'm taking into account how long this should take you, and I'm giving you that time frame. So please be aware of that. We've finished this warm up. Take a picture of this, hand it in, and then go to the project tab when you're ready. And if you want to start it, you can.